mankind by liberating millions of minds at a time. Maverick News. The world is watching.
The New World Order. Government overreach. The Great Reset. Mainstream media lies. Now more than ever, independent voices are needed. Donate now, at freedomreporters.com. That's freedomreporters.com. Maverick News. The antivirus program for your mind.
Okay, so actor Kevin Spacey has been found not guilty in a London court on a series of sexual assault charges, which came from several accusers. 12 jurors began deliberating about noon Monday after a 3-week trial. Spacey entered a plea of not guilty on 12 charges of sexual assault. The 64-year-old actor has been cleared of 9 charges. The additional charges had been struck down before the jury even began its deliberations. Prosecutors had sought during the trial to label Spacey as a sexual bully. He did take to the stand and defended himself. Elton John also appeared as a character witness for the defense, testifying remotely from Monaco about Spacey, who once attended some sort of a big party, a gala at Elton John's Windsor home. Spacey had appeared in a London court in July 2022 and pled not guilty after Metropolitan Police formally charged him. The Crown Prosecution Service announced 5 charges against Spacey back in May of 2022, accusing him of sexual assault against 3 men. There was 1 charge of causing a person to engage in penetrative sexual activity without consent, prosecutors alleged at the time. There were an additional 7 charges, which were added later. Some months later, in November of 2022, the Academy Award-winning actor has faced allegations and charges of sexual assault, not only in the United Kingdom, but also in the United States. He was found not liable back in October in a civil sexual assault suit, which was brought by actor Anthony Rapp in New York City. And so, yeah, he voluntarily appeared in court in London, took the stand, defended himself, had Elton John come to his defense. Several of the UK allegations back from 2001 and 2013 came from the Spacey's tenure as an artistic director at a London theater company called the Old Vic. The allegations were made public in 2017. They came to the surface 2 years after Spacey had left that job. And he said at the time that the allegations were a shock and were disturbing. And I've got a clip of Spacey here from today, a reaction to the verdict. Here we go, Kevin Spacey.
I imagine that many of you can understand that there's a lot for me to process after what has just happened today. But I would like to say that I'm enormously grateful to the jury for having taken the time to examine all of the evidence and all of the facts carefully before they reach their decision. and I am humbled by the outcome today. I also want to thank the staff inside this courthouse, the security, and all those who took care of us every single day. My legal team, Evan Lowenstein and Lucy, for being here every day. And that's all I have to say for the moment. Thank you very much.
What do you guys think? Was that the right decision? Did you guys follow his case closely enough to come to any judgment of your own? Were you following the case? Did you see much of the testimony? I didn't see the testimony. I can't sit here tonight and give you an intelligent assessment of the evidence in any way that would lead me to any kind of a conclusion, because I just haven't seen enough of it. What are you guys thinking? Yeah, so Barron says, Barron is skeptical, thinks that Kevin Spacey might have actually been guilty. What else do we have here in the chats tonight? Barron also says, if Elton John is your character witness, you might want to plea bargain. Well, the legal team seemed to do their job. They got an acquittal. Isabel says, Barron, it was the most open use of Masonic connection since yesterday. What else? Anybody else commenting on this tonight? David Murdry says, Elton John's chin gas smashed. Oh, I can't say that on the air. Okay, and people just not buying the outcome. And Sandy says, I love Kevin Spacey. House of Cards was awesome. And I have to say, he's a very talented actor. One of the most talented actors I can think of, actually. His versatility, his ability to create characters, very convincing, versatile. Here's Jilly Bean. Never me, eh, Rick? I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means. Well, anyway, hang on a second here. Okay, I'm going to take another quick break and be right back after this.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, so RFK Jr. took part in a town hall hosted by Fox News and Sean Hannity last night. I didn't run it. I just thought we'd bring you some highlights from it tonight. I don't know if any of you guys took the time to watch the thing last night, but I find the coverage, mainstream media coverage, interesting. The mainstream media still not warming up that much to RFK Jr. Here's a Newsweek article. I would say that RFK Jr. outclassed Hannity, especially on the issues surrounding foreign policy and the war in Ukraine. But here's the Newsweek article. Just take a look at this. RFK Jr.'s Ukraine narrative challenged by Sean Hannity. Yeah, I think RFK Jr. kind of put Hannity in his place. Just look at the way this is written. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. was challenged by Fox News host Sean Hannity over his assertion that the United States had been pushing Ukraine into the war with Russia. Kennedy, who is running for the 2024 Democratic presidential nomination, said the Biden administration want war with Russia during a Fox News town hall on Tuesday. Polling indicates President Joe Biden has a commanding lead over the fringe candidates, such as Kennedy, who are challenging him to be the Democrats' White House candidate in 2024. Kennedy, nephew of assassinated President John F. Kennedy, began his activist career as an environmental campaigner before becoming a noted vaccine skeptic and opponent of U.S. military aid to Ukraine. Well, the phrasing, the way this is written, you would think that Kennedy is just an also ran without a chance, a fringe candidate so far behind he doesn't stand a chance, with ideas and political views that are kind of wacky. And I don't think that's the case at all. I think that he's in the running. I think that he's an absolute serious threat to Biden. The only way that he doesn't get the nomination, honestly, I think at this point is if the DNC machine just springs into action as it already has to ensure that the grassroots don't really get a voice in the process. So let's just pull up a few of the clips from the big town hall with Sean Hannity.
Borders, all these things, they're simple. I believe that peace through strength with all my heart, control our borders, all these things, they're simple. I believe that educational school choice. We agree on these things?
Yeah, we agree on all those things.
No. One area I don't like the fact that America is bearing the brunt and the burden of financing most of the war against Putin in Ukraine. I think we agree on that part. Why isn't Europe, why don't they ever step up and defend their own continent before they ask for U.S. involvement? And why would Joe Biden veto Poland, given Zelensky fighter jets to actually fight to win the war after they were invaded?
Well, the more disturbing thing is that on two occasions, the Russians tried to sign a peace agreement with Zelensky.
Do you trust Putin?
Do I trust Putin? No, but that's not. Listen, I've litigated over 500 lawsuits. All of them end up with, or many of them end up with settlements or one kind or the other. And he never trusts the guy on the other side. You use language art, and you use the design of agreements.
So Ukraine, to appease Putin, who I think is evil, they've already given up Crimea. It was annexed. So what? Now they have to give up the Donbass area.
Ukraine, because of our pushing the Ukraine into the war on two occasions,
we pushed them into it, or did Putin?
Well, let me tell you. Let me answer your question. Yeah. In 2019, France, Germany, and Russia all agreed to the Minsk Accords. That year, Zelensky ran for president. He was a comedian. He had no political experience. Why did he win? Because he ran on one issue, signing the Minsk Accords. As soon as he got in there, Victoria Nuland in the White House told him he couldn't do it. Then Putin sends 40,000 troops in. That's not enough to conquer the country. Clearly, he wanted us to come to the negotiation. He wanted somebody to come to the negotiating table. Zelensky came to the negotiating table, signed a new agreement that was the Minsk Accords 2 in 2022, and that would have allowed Donbass to stay and Lugansk to remain as part of Ukraine. We said, Putin signed it, Zelensky initialed it, and Putin, in good faith, began withdrawing troops from the Ukraine. What happened? We sent Boris Johnson over there to torpedo it because we don't want peace we want the war with Russia.
Whatever, why are you blaming America's role in this? And look, I am, Putin to me is an evil, murdering dictator thug, and when he leaves this earth, nobody's going to miss him. Let's be honest. However, I think that Europe has a responsibility to protect their continent, and yet it always seems to fall on the United States. Joe Biden has committed all these billions of dollars that we can't afford, and he's not fighting the war to win the war. I don't believe in fighting wars half-assed. If you're going to fight a war, you go in, overwhelming force, you beat them, you get the hell out. That's it, and only if it's provoked. Putin did not need to invade in a sovereign country, in my view. Is Zelensky perfect? Nope. I don't think he is either. I agree with you on that part. But America's role, I think, should be dictated first by Europe, and they've got to defend their continent, and they haven't stepped up, in my view.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think most of the European countries wanted the war either. It's clear what happened, which is that, from the beginning, we promised in 1992, the Russian leadership said, we will move. This was Gorbachev said when the Soviet Union, he was getting ready to dismantle the Soviet Union, and he said, we're going to withdraw 400,000 troops from East Germany. And we're going to allow you to reunite Germany under NATO, which was a hostile army. That's a huge concession for them. The one commitment that we want, is what the Russians said, is that you will not move NATO to the east. James Baker, who was then Secretary of State under Bush, famously promised, we will not move NATO 1 inch to the east. Well, since then, we've moved it 1,000 miles in 14 countries. Now, when we started that plan in 1997, Bill Perry, who was the Secretary of Defense under Clinton, said to the Clinton administration, if you move NATO to the east, I'm resigning because you are forcing the Russians to come to war with us. George Kennan was the most important diplomat in American history, the architect of the containment policy during World War II, said the same thing. You do not need to make an enemy out of Russia. Russia should be treated the way we won the Cold War.
It gets complicated. Let me ask you a question.
So he's absolutely right. That's exactly what has been the case. And if you flip it around and look at it the other way, one of the justifications that they've been trying to use for this conflict and the support of Ukraine is that we have to stop Russia now because they've been trying to tell us, the war hawks, that Russia has designs on reestablishing the old Soviet Union and pushing into Europe and taking over countries. But if you think about what NATO has been doing, that's exactly what NATO has been doing. They've just been doing it through a variety of political and information warfare means, using various tactics, taking over countries without actually using physical force. Or if there is any kind of force going on, they're doing it through things like color revolutions, like we saw in Ukraine in 2014. One country after another, they fall and come under the NATO umbrella. And so if you stand back and look at the big picture, get up high, get the aerial view, the macro view of the geopolitical situation, NATO has been expanding, taking over countries, one after another after another. And as RFK Jr. said there, 1,000 miles and 14 countries later, Putin has finally said, that's it. You've crossed this line in the sand that I told you existed and that it would be intolerable for us. It's an existential threat to our sovereignty to have you right on our doorstep in Ukraine. So now we have the conflict. But NATO only sees it one way. The Biden administration, the Trudeau regime, these NATO countries, they're only seeing it one way. their way. And they want to dictate to other countries, Russia, China, Iran. They want to dictate how it's going to be with their rules-based international order, the New World Order. They make the rules. Everybody else is supposed to get into lockstep with them and comply. If you don't, you're the enemy and you will suffer the consequences. And it's very clear that this war in Ukraine is not just another proxy war. This is an attempt to wear down the Russians, erode their military capability over time, and ultimately, I think, and as has been acknowledged by Joe Biden himself, the ultimate goal, regime change in Moscow, not Ukraine. So we continue to watch this day after day. But in that town hall exchange, I would say RFK Jr. outclassed Hannity. Obviously, in my view, has a much better grasp of the politics, the history, and the geopolitical realities that face America and the world today and heading into the future. It's a new world out there, but it's not necessarily going to end up being the New World Order as Joe Biden envisions, or Sean Hannity for that matter.
Final straw, COVID
Here's
lockdowns. We created a billionaire a day, and this was Trump and Biden. Of 500 days of lockdowns, we created a billionaire a day. We moved $4 trillion from the American middle class to the super rich. The people who came into the lockdown with $1 billion increased their wealth on average by 30%. And we closed 3.3 million businesses. And so that
in retrospect, and I give for a period of time in the early days, nobody knew what the hell they were dealing with. Let's be fair. But there came
I'm not going to be fair.
All right, you don't be fair. No, in the early
lockdowns.
Yeah, let's be fair. No. Because all the plans that were ever worked out in advance, every government, every health organization in the world practically has emergency preparedness plans that they have sitting on a shelf. They develop them over years and years and years, and they take experiences from various health emergencies and learn from them and then develop a plan of action. And all of the plans, none of them called for lockdowns. In fact, they said to do exactly the opposite. So for Hannity to sit there, especially now, and sit there and say, well, you got to be fair. They didn't really know what they were dealing with, and blah, blah, blah. No, I don't think so. I knew, you knew that locking down the way they did was a really bad idea. Really, really bad idea, because it actually hurts people. Hang on a second here. Got a couple more quick clips of RFK here for you. Yeah, one more clip of RFK. Why should people vote for him? That's the question. This is his closing answer. Let's bring him up. RFK Jr. at the Sean Hannity Town Hall last evening.
A minute left in this hour. And I want to ask you this. You're talking to the American people tonight. Why should they vote for you for president? Tell them, in a 1 minute final statement.
I'm running on I think most Americans were at each other's throats today. We have the worst polarization that we've ever had since the American Civil War. It's more dangerous and more toxic.
Well, the 60s was a little crazy too.
The 60s were, when my father ran, it was, there was a lot of division at that time. But it's hard to see how this is ever going to end well. And what I've said is I want to end that polarization, and I want to do that by telling the truth. The way that we're going to do that, the first step we have to take is to tell the truth. Have a president who's willing to tell the truth about everything. People.
Pretty darn simple. And actually, that's exactly what I've said about what we do right here. Just tell the truth. Or do the best we can to get you closer to the truth. That's our job here too. And if there was a president who did that, the whole world would be a whole lot better off.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News. Defending free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching. Maverick News. The world is watching.
All right, off we go to Canada for a brief update on the poster boy for the globalist movement. Justin Trudeau, Prime Minister, made significant changes to his cabinet today, setting the stage for a reset of the Liberal agenda after 8 years in power. There was a ceremony at Rideau Hall presided over by Governor General Mary Simon, witnessed by one of the most consequential reconfigurations to Trudeau's cabinet since 2015. So 7 rookie MPs were promoted to key roles today, while 7 ministers were dropped, and most other ministers saw their responsibilities reassigned. Trudeau, clearly optimistic about his new team, stated, "What a team!" during his post-shuffle press conference, emphasizing the potential of his new roster of ministers. So this shuffle comes amidst challenging global conditions, to say the least. Storm clouds all around the world impacting Canadians, from the conflict in Ukraine to rising authoritarianism and foreign interference, Chinese police stations. Trudeau acknowledged today that times are difficult, but he expressed confidence in his team's ability to deliver for Canadians and build a brighter future. Sunny ways. Amid the clouds of doom. I'm not sure this is going to save him. Notable changes in the cabinet included Anita Anand, who moved from defense to become Treasury Board president. Former police chief Bill Blair, former police chief of Toronto, taking on the high-profile role of defense minister. Sean Fraser took over the housing file, while Dominic LeBlanc became the new public safety minister. Out goes Marco Mendicino. Pablo Rodriguez assumed the transport portfolio. That's a Spanish accent mixed with a little bit of the Frenchman from Quebec. And maybe the Northern Ontario kind of French, I don't know. I mix my Spanish and my French together and you get like French Spanglish in English. So Rodriguez assumed the transport portfolio, and Jean-Yves Duclos became the Minister of Public Services and Procurement. So you have 7 total rookie MPs have joined the cabinet, including Gary and I don't know who this guy is. This is a new one for me. Gary Anand Anasanagari, I can't pronounce his name, as Minister of Crown Indigenous Relations. I don't know. I'm sorry, I can't. Anand Asangari. I'll have to figure out how to pronounce that one. I apologize both to Gary and to you for mispronouncing his name. I am sorry about that. Arif Virani is the Minister of Justice and Attorney General, and Terry Beach is the Minister of Citizens Services. So you still have key ministers like Chrystia Freeland, super duper Ukraine cheerleader, as Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister. And, you know, even though I'm paying like 30 to 50% more for a lot of things at the grocery store that cost me a whole lot less like just a year ago, and even less a year before that, she's bragging about keeping inflation down because they had one number that came in lower than expected last time, this very last reporting on the inflation rate. But anyway, Francois Philippe Champagne as Minister of Innovation, Science and Industry, and Melanie Joly is still the Canadian Foreign Affairs Minister. So I think this is this significant cabinet shuffle, the first one since the 2021 election. I think this sets the stage for Trudeau entering the next election. He's trying to sanitize, clean up, polish up his cabinet and his party and his image before he heads into the next election, trying to find some way to minimize any vulnerabilities that his government might have before voters go to the polls. And we're seeing in the polls today that the Conservatives, I don't have it in front of me here, but I did see an indication that there was a new poll out showing that the Conservative Party of Canada has increased its lead to double digits now over the Trudeau Liberals. I don't know how accurate that is, but it looked like a pretty credible report to me, where it has been very, very close. In fact, neck in neck, 33, 34% each for the Conservatives and the Liberals. It is now like 38% Conservative, and the newest poll indicates the Liberals are like down into the 20s. So a huge drop and a little bit of a gain on the Conservative side. That indicates, though, that some of those other parties are picking up the Liberal support. the New Democrats, the Greens, the Bloc, PPC a little bit. So keep your eyes on the Canadian election landscape, folks. Oh, and here's this one. Even now, even after it seems like the pandemic has faded into the background, but Gene Simmons, the knight in Satan's service of KISS, says, I'm not worried if an idiot gets COVID and dies. There are so many cases of people who were deniers and who are begging in the hospital to get the vaccine, but it's too late. I don't know. That popped up on social media today. And I'm not sure if that's new. It appears to be new. It's a new post. Anyway, he still deserves the scrutiny tonight because it's such a distasteful thing to have said. And I know he was saying exactly that stuff during the pandemic when people were talking about violations of civil rights, bodily autonomy, the right to decide what goes into your body and what doesn't. And then just when you thought it was safe to go back to the movies, we have Barbenheimer. There it is. I just saw this today. I thought I'd share it. Reminds me of the Attack of the 50-Foot Woman science fiction film from the 1950s. Barbenheimer. See, what happened is Robert Oppenheimer got his team together and they exploded the first big nuke. And then the nuke, when it exploded, Barbie was there in her pink Corvette. And what she did, is she was cruising down the highway, watching the big mushroom cloud. And Godzilla was in the passenger seat, And so you had the Barbie in the driver's seat, and you had Godzilla in the passenger seat, and they watched the big Oppenheimer mushroom cloud together. She had her super duper anti-nuclear super Barbie shades on, and when the big nuke went off, she got irradiated with the Godzilla guy, and they growed up. They growed up into great big giant things. And so they called her the Barbenheimer, and they called it the Godzilla guy Godzilla. And he got really, really big too. And he started to breathe the fire and everything. And then they made a whole bunch of movies together. And as they say, the rest is a history. And now they made a whole new movie. And one movie wasn't good enough. So they got the two of them and they put them together. And they morphed the genes together in a thermonuclear film GPT, artificial intelligence, mRNA fusion explosion. And they made it the big thing called the Barbenheimer. And everybody celebrated. And then they went to the Walmart and they bought all the Barbie dolls and the pink Corvettes. And the men that got the big hats and the jackets, and they dressed up like a Robert Oppenheimer, and then prepared for the spring release of the new Godzilla movie, which is no doubt going to come. And I don't know what they're going to call that weekend, but this has been the Barbenheimer apocalypse. I'll be right back after this. Don't go away. I'm coming back. I'm going to do it. I mean it. Here I go.
The New World Order. Government overreach. The Great Reset. Mainstream media lies. Now more than ever, independent voices are needed. Donate now at freedomreporters.com. That's freedomreporters.com. Maverick News. The antivirus program. For your mind.
Oh no, the Barbenheimer took over the screen there, eh? I'll be right at the back again. Hang on. I finally got her off there. It was really hard because she's irradiated, eh? And so she can't do nothing works properly around here. Don't worry. I'll be back.
Fear not the storm, for truth is on our side. Maverick News.